What is up, bros? With Josh here, and today's video is all about the USS Hill, the Tier 5 USN Destroyer. The ship is still currently work in progress, so these stats are subject to change before it eventually will go live. I imagine we'll see some small tweaks, but what we see right here is probably pretty close to its final version. Throughout this video, I will be comparing it to the tech tree ship, the Nicholas, the Tier 5 USN Destroyer, because there are some things that are pretty comparable between the two ships. Throughout this video, we'll go over the stats, as well as some gameplay and my thoughts on the ship and how it will be released. The Hill at Tier 5 follows the pattern that Wargaming has had with the USN Destroyers, offering a premium version of a tech tree ship that offers some kind of give and take, strength here, weakness there. We've seen that at Tier 8 where the Benson and the Kid, Tier 7 with the Sims and the Mahan, Tier 6 with the Monahan and the Farragut. We'll also see other work in progress ships like the Summers and the Benham, both at Tier 9 and Tier 10. But the Hill at Tier 5 offers some give and take for that low tier playstyle, which I actually quite find fun. The USN line is one of my favorite lines, and the Hill is something I'm kind of excited about. Let's dive into the stats, though, and one of the first things I want to look at is what the Nicholas has. So the Nicholas has two sets, and now what we're looking at right here when comparing the majority of these stats is the original hull to the Nicholas. Now, the reason why I'm doing that is because this is the setup that offers 5 main turrets. If you look at the Hill's whole setup is 5 main turrets. So that's what we will be comparing it to. As you all know, the Nicholas has 2 comparable turrets, which has more of the AA. This is a pattern you see on a lot of the USN destroyers, where you will get increased AA, but you have to give up a main battery turret for it, going down to 4. Although you do get some health to make up for what you are losing in gunpowder. But throughout this in stats, we are using the A hull on the Nicholas. Also, when you take B hull, you do get the AA consumable, which you do not have available, as the Hill does not have AA as well. But you do have a pretty decent value for AA. But the stats for the Hill, this is, and I'll show you the captain, this is pretty much the captain I'm using on both of these ships to compare the stats, so some of these stats will be affected by this captain. So we're using priority target, last stand, survivability expert, so we will see a little bit of a buff there with HP. Concealment expert, in game you'll see me using radiolocation on both, and then BFT for this. So this is what you will see affecting the main armament. And the stats for the Hill compared to the Nicholas are pretty comparable. 13,850. This is just a tad higher than the Nicholas, which is pretty comparable, but one of the biggest differences is the guns, and this is something that I think Wargaming might tweak, and that is the reload of 3.6 seconds. This is a reload we tend to see on the higher tier ships, not so much in low tier, and it is very noticeable, and you feel kind of really strong when you're playing this ship. It seems like a very fast reload for this style, especially with 5 shells going out every 3.6. It's going to be around 4 without BFT, as you compare it to the Nicholas at tier 5 with almost a 6-second reload, and that is with BFT. So that is a 6.5-second reload without BFT. So quite difference there with its damage output, but you'll see what it gives up later to be able to do that. Torpedoes are very similar. This is going to have the Mahan setup where there is 1 on each side and then 1 swing in the middle. We see that in the Tier 7 Mahan, the tech tree ship, as the Nicholas has 2 on each side. So you are giving up a bit of a torpedo-ish play right there, although the Nicholas not really known for being able to stealth torp because the range is 5.5 and the detectability is 5.8. Again, though, they basically are the same torps, still 5.5, but as you see, the Hill has a detection of 6.4. This is at the level of the Monahan at 6 and the Farragut at 6.6, so that is one thing you're really giving up, is your stealth ability. However, the Hill does come with some decent AA. I did play around a little bit with an AA build for this ship, but it didn't really make too much of a difference, so I didn't really do too much into it. I thought it might be fun to have like a full AA build. Didn't quite work, sadly. Maneuverability is all pretty similar, 37.5 knots, 560 on the turning, and 3.1. If we compare that to the Nicholas, pretty dang similar. I mean, there's some little bit there, but one of the main things that is something to note is 5.8 detection on the Nicholas and 6.4 on the Hill, but what you give up for detection you make up in a gunfight, and that is one thing that, especially at this tier, radiolocation is quite strong. So going from the Hill against the Nicholas, you have that about a half a kilometer, a little bit more of a buffer there that the Nicholas can spot the Hill. But I think the Hill would probably make up for the almost double DPM it has over the Nicholas if you just have that radio location skill. So quite an important. Let's dive into some gameplay, and I'll show you how strong and how effective this ship can be, especially in the low tier arena, which is something that is quite fragile with making a ship that potentially has this much firepower. So here we are in game with the Hill, and this is a ship that, although it does show a giant weakness for destroyers this tier, most destroyers are known as being very stealthy. You'll go against DDs that actually outspot you by an entire kilometer. However, since this is a premium ship, you're able to switch over high tier captains, high level captains over to this. And that's one thing that I'm actually quite nervous about with this ship and quite worried about with this ship is its gun power. This is something that at low tier is so strong. Take an example of the Vampire, the tier 3 destroyer. It's known as being so strong in a seal clubbing ship because of how well the firepower is. Its torps are pretty mediocre, but the gun power is so strong. At low tier, there are so many DDs that if you have better guns, you're just going to win those engagements. And you'll even see me go against cruisers. If planned right, you can outgun a cruiser pretty easily. So not only is this ship kind of having a weakness with its detectability, but since you can switch over a captain, having just radio location, or even just having a high-level captain with survivability expert and all these extra bonuses and BFT, getting a 10, 13, 16, 17 point captain, it's fairly easy to do, all the way up to 19, of course. It does alarm me a little bit because of this thing's potential for having such a strong firepower at this low tier. This is a very fragile tier. This is where your new players are, and this is something that I think the Hill, although the Nicholas has the ability to be quite stealthy and outspot this thing and get stealthy, you don't quite have the focus fire to take advantage of a ship outspotting that. This is kind of known as being the area of this game where tier 5, I would even say, are brand new players because of how fast people can progress through this game. So it's not so much tier 1, tier 2 as new players. I would say tier 4, tier 5 is where the new players are playing these days. And having a 3-something second reload with 5 guns going out, what is this Matsuki supposed to do even though he's outspotted me? Obviously, a lot of people aren't wearing camos at this point in the game, or they haven't even unlocked camos. There's nothing this player can do. So this firepower may be a tad too much. I would probably like to see maybe a split here of maybe a bit of a buff to its detection, however a nerf to its guns. I think this may just be a tad too much for this tier as we see it right now. Nothing too crazy. I like that you have the less torps and the higher detection than the Nicholas. I like how there's something different, but I feel like the Hill could actually be quite a good example of what a premium ship should be. If you like the Nicholas and you want a premium version of it, the Hill is something that could be that, but I don't want something that's too strong for its tier with its ability to just straight up, you know, gun everything down and not really have it. This guy doesn't have a chance against this. He's not even shooting his guns, and the Hill is just going to continue to just send out tons and tons of damage on a very fast reload. 3.6 seconds, and that's not even including adrenaline rush, which I have on this captain. So not only are we trying to balance the ship, but you have to be aware of the arena the ship will play in. I even found this ship to up tier fairly well. Going into the higher tiers against tier 6s and tier 7s, your detection actually really isn't that bad. Against the Farragut, you're going to be able to detect it and actually be quite competitive, although the Farragut will have a little bit more life. Even things like the Monahan, the Sims at 6.6, 6.8, 6.7, these are all things that you could have just outspot and be okay. So I did actually see that this thing even up tiered pretty well because the guns are so competitive. But what's one thing too is it was kind of fun to have. It's kind of this new play style. I would consider the USN line to be very like a hybrid line. This one more so, and this is what I'm talking about with DDs versus cruisers. This is a Karav, and you're gonna see what a low tier destroyer to a cruiser, if positioned well, can have an impact. As I said, this thing will out damage most DDs at this tier. Yes, I'm looking even at you Grimyashis and stuff like that, but even against cruisers, you know, this isn't out of the ordinary for low tier cruisers to just be sailing broadside. So that's a cruiser that's disappeared in 30 seconds. You know, that's something that we do need to kind of look at when looking at this ship. Now, there has been rumors or maybe leaks or whatever. I don't think anything is finalized at this point when I'm recording this video, but my hunch is this is going to be something that we would be part of the post-apocalyptic game mode. Now, that guy just detonated. I think we would have killed him anyway with that next salvo. With the post-apocalyptic event, there was a screenshot where it showed the hill in the post-apocalyptic camos. So will this ship be available through that event? Probably. Wargaming's been getting into a pattern of releasing a ship or letting a premium of mid to low tier be available for free along with the event, as long as you get enough of the tokens. I could see the hill easily being that, but that's something that this is a ship that is quite strong, even with the higher detection for this tier, that a lot of people are going to have. This could cause problems in low tiers with the health of destroyers in general. So that's what I'm more worried about. I'm more looking at the big picture of how a ship with this much gunpowder could have. There could be a bit of a downside here. So I think what we'll see is probably something pretty close, because you give up having a higher detection for more guns. I like that trade-off, but I think it's a tad high. I would like to see a little bit less, a little bit slower of a reload for a little bit lower of a detection. I think 6.2 is probably pretty fair, but I think something just a tad slower than the Nicholas, not quite this level. And I think we're going to have a pretty good example of what a premium ship should be at that point. You know, not every premium ship needs to be this holy crap, extremely overpowered, extremely strong, it's so worth my money, blah blah blah. But I think the idea of a premium ship is if you like the ship and you want a version of that said ship to make more credits and whatnot, then you have that. So something like this, I mean, you're going to see me get, I think, like over 200 hits when it comes to this ship. This is kind of almost like a gunboat destroyer. As you saw, that Congo, I've been within 5, 6, 7K of him, and he's missed multiple salvos. This is not out of the ordinary for a lot of DD's battleships, of having them. And there goes my stolen Kraken right there. This isn't too out of the ordinary, and this isn't like a crazy 200,000 damage game, but this is a game that I kind of noticed it. I think I was averaging 3 kills or so. I think I was averaging between 70 to 80,000 damage. This is something that was very strong. It was a strong destroyer, and I felt strong when playing it. I felt maybe a little too strong. Now, you did see the weakness when you went against DDs early, as you saw. I did have the weakness of going against those destroyers and them spotting me first, but as you saw, I can, it's a premium ship. I can rotate captains that have radio location over. If you have radio location, it kind of negates a lot of the weakness that you would have against something that out detects you, because even if it out detects you, you know it's at least in a general area, so you can prepare for torps, you can prepare for its guns, you can prepare for all that. And on top of that, getting low tier ships, especially in tier 5, although tier 5 tends to not have the best matchmaking, with both getting bottom tiered a lot as well as some just being a newer tier for a lot of people, tends to not get the best support fire, if you will, as you would maybe in like higher tiers. But still, it's just something that I hope Wargaming kind of keeps an eye on. I feel like I'm excited for this ship. I love USN Destroyers. I don't play a lot of low tiers because I don't really, I don't play a lot of low tiers. It is kind of goofy to play every once in a while, but I do feel like there could potentially be a problem about this being too strong of a seal clubber. Just having that ability to rotate over a high level captain into this, you have to just be realistic with what this ship potentially is. A couple of downsides though. Nicholas against this. Nicholas does have the ability to bring in, and there goes my Kraken potentially again, but hey, we have a CV, so let's go get that. We have the lack of AA consumable, which is something that Nicholas could pick up. Again, we talked about that. So it doesn't have that, so you do have a bit more of... I like this. I like the ship idea. I just think there needs to be some data changes. Low tier ships with high guns are just so strong, but I do like that this offers a bit more of an aggressive play style compared to the Nicholas. Again, only having 3 sets of torps instead of 4, and also having the higher detection. So I think this ship will be quite fun for a lot of people, but it does feel it's awkward. It's not awkward, I guess that's the wrong way of saying it, but it's weird to be a USN DD and firing so much. Now, what tends to happen is you tend to shoot a decent amount, use your torps, shoot, torps, shoot. This one, I have one torp hit, 5.5 kilometer torps. Not much is going to be within range, especially when I'm almost a kilometer higher detection than that. So I spent almost my whole game shooting the guns. I'm willing to take the risk of pumping out 5 shells every 3.6 seconds. Again, lower because we're about half-life with Adrenaline Rush, against a battleship that's having a tough time hitting me. I'm willing to take that risk. So it does add this kind of new playstyle that maybe a lot of people don't play with. People might use like maybe the Kid as an example of something that, or another USNDD that has this similar playstyle. But overall, I think what we have here is something that is pretty close to what we will see in the final version. I just think overall it will be tweaked a tad. I think what we have right now is just a good example of too much firepower in a too low of a tier. You're going to be going against people who are brand new at this game, against people who just have no idea how to aim, and it's not a knock against them. It's just you can't, I think, have a weapon that's too strong at a low tier. I think that's just really unhealthy for the game overall. So I imagine we'll see this. I like it. I think we'll probably see a buff in the final version to its detection, and then probably a nerf overall to its reload. I think those are the two things I'd like to see. Other than that, though, I like this ship overall. I like the idea of it, and you know, it can be a fun low tier that potentially we'll get for free. Again, I don't know 100% how this ship will be available, and I don't know if it'll be available through purchase at a later time. I just don't know. Obviously, at the recording of this, we're before 8.5 patch, which is the post-apocalyptic patch. So we'll know obviously then or in an upcoming update. But still, a very fun ship. I'm just a little bit worried about how much potential output that this ship has gun-wise, and it's something that I think Wargaming should kind of keep an idea on, or keep an eye on for just the production of this ship. So overall, I like the idea. Tier 5 is a fun tier for a lot of people. It's a good premium. Potentially, we might get it for free through this event, and but I think some things will be tweaked. I think it's just a tad too strong, although you give up concealment, but you get this insane gun power at this tier, and I just think that's something that Wargaming will end up tweaking. But anyways, guys, that's my review, our preview on the USS Hill, the Tier 5, currently work in progress, USN Destroyer. Anyways, that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.